What's up, everyone? Welcome back. Tonight, we're diving into another batch of disturbing Reddit stories. Some are creepy, some are unsettling, and a couple might make you think twice before going to bed tonight. Let's not waste any time. Here's the first story. I thought the old man was helping me. I was wrong. My life fell apart faster than I ever thought possible. 3 months before all of this happened, I had a job, an apartment, and enough money in the bank to think I was doing okay. Then the company I worked for downsized. I lost my job. My savings disappeared trying to keep up with rent. A month later, I lost my apartment too. By the time this story starts, I'd been sleeping on the streets for nearly 4 weeks. People think being homeless is just about being poor. It isn't. It's about becoming invisible. Most people walk right past you without even making eye contact. Some look at you like you're contagious. So when an old man stopped and spoke to me one morning, I was genuinely surprised. He looked harmless enough. Mid-70s maybe. Neatly dressed. Gray hair. Kind face. "Excuse me," he said. "Would you be willing to help me with something?" I was already expecting him to ask for directions or spare change. Instead, he pulled a $100 bill from his wallet. "I'll give you this if you can do a small favor for me." I stared at the money. $100 might not mean much to some people. To me, it was several days of food. "What kind of favor?" I asked. "My wife isn't feeling well. I need someone to bring her breakfast." That was it. No weird requests. No hidden catch. Just breakfast. I should have walked away. Looking back now, there were warning signs everywhere. But desperation has a way of making you ignore your instincts. The apartment building was only a few blocks away. As I walked there carrying a paper bag containing coffee and pastries, I remember feeling almost grateful. The old man had even paid me up front. Who does that? I thought maybe the world wasn't as bad as I'd started believing. The building itself was old and poorly maintained. The elevator wasn't working. I climbed 3 flights of stairs and found the apartment. When I knocked, nobody answered. I waited. Knocked again. Still nothing. I considered leaving the food outside the door, but then I noticed the door wasn't fully closed. It opened with the slightest push. "Hello?" I called. Nothing. I should have left right then. Instead, I stepped inside. The apartment smelled awful. Not like garbage. Not like spoiled food. Something worse. A heavy odor that reminded me of hospitals and damp basements. The television was on in the living room, but the volume was muted. Everything else was silent. I called out again. No response. Then I heard movement from the bedroom. A faint scraping sound. I followed it. The bedroom door was partially open. Inside, an elderly woman sat on the floor beside the bed. Her back was facing me. At first, I thought she might have fallen. "Ma'am?" I asked. Nothing. I took another step closer. "Your husband sent breakfast." Slowly, she turned her head. I'll never forget that look. Not because it was supernatural. Not because her eyes were glowing. Because she looked absolutely terrified. The kind of terror that makes people unpredictable. For a moment, she just stared at me. Then she screamed. I've never heard a sound like that before. It wasn't fear. It was panic. Raw panic. She launched herself at me. 1 second, she was sitting on the floor. The next, she was clawing at my face. I stumbled backward. She grabbed my shirt. I remember seeing blood on her fingernails. I remember her screaming words that made no sense. Calling me names. Accusing me of things. Begging me to leave. Then threatening to kill me. All within seconds. She was completely disconnected from reality. We crashed into a dresser. Drawers spilled open. Objects scattered across the floor. I was trying to get away. That's the part people never seem to understand. I wasn't fighting her. I was trying to escape. But she wouldn't let go. She kept grabbing me, scratching me, pulling me back whenever I got free. Then she reached for something on the nightstand, a heavy lamp. I genuinely thought she was going to smash my skull open. Instinct took over. I shoved her. Hard. Harder than I intended. She fell backward. The sound her head made when it hit the corner of the dresser still wakes me up sometimes. There was no dramatic moment. No final words. Just silence. Complete silence. I stood there frozen. My heart felt like it was going to explode. The woman wasn't moving. Blood slowly spread across the floor beneath her. I kept telling myself to call 911, but my body wouldn't move. Then I heard the front door open. Someone entered the apartment. The old man. I could hear his footsteps. Slow, calm, almost casual. Then he walked into the bedroom. His eyes immediately went to his wife. He didn't seem shocked. Not really. Almost like he'd been expecting something bad to happen. He looked at me, then at her, then back at me. And the first thing he said was, "She attacked you, didn't she?" Everything suddenly clicked. The scratches on my arms, the smell in the apartment, the unlocked door, the fact he'd paid a stranger to go inside, the fact he hadn't gone himself. He knew exactly how dangerous she was, and he sent me in there anyway. Later, police told me the woman suffered from severe dementia combined with violent psychotic episodes. Multiple caregivers had quit. Neighbors had filed complaints. Paramedics had been called before. The old man never told me any of that. Instead, he'd handed a desperate homeless stranger $100 and sent him into that apartment alone. The investigation lasted months. In the end, they ruled the death self-defense. Legally, I was cleared, but that didn't make it easier. Because I still think about one thing. The old man wasn't trying to help me. He wasn't being generous. He wasn't doing a good deed. He knew exactly what could happen, and he decided that if someone got hurt, it was better if that someone was a homeless man nobody would miss. That's the part that scares me most. Not the woman, not her attack, not even her death. The fact that there are people who can look at someone already at the bottom of society and decide their life is worth gambling with. And if I had died in that apartment that day, I honestly don't think anyone would have cared enough to ask why. I took a locksmith call at 4 a.m. I've been a locksmith for a little over 10 years, and if there's one thing this job has taught me, it's that most mysteries have boring explanations. People lock themselves out of houses. They lose keys. They forget combinations. They accuse neighbors, spouses, exes, and sometimes complete strangers of stealing things, only to discover the missing item sitting exactly where they left it. After enough years, you develop a habit of looking for the practical answer first. That habit is the only reason I'm still able to sleep after what happened 6 years ago. Even now, I tell myself there has to be a logical explanation. I just haven't found it yet. The call came in a little after 3 in the morning. I remember because I had only been asleep for about an hour when my phone started vibrating across the nightstand. I almost ignored it. Our company offered 24-hour emergency service, which sounded great in advertisements, but was significantly less appealing when you were the one getting dragged out of bed in the middle of the night. I reached over, squinted at the screen, and answered. A man's voice came through. Calm, polite, almost strangely polite. He said he had locked himself out of his house and needed assistance. Nothing unusual there. I took down the address and told him I'd be there as soon as possible. Then I got dressed, grabbed my equipment, and headed out. The address was farther away than I expected. The farther I drove, the fewer houses I saw. Streetlights became scarce. Traffic disappeared completely. Soon it was just me, the road, and endless darkness beyond the reach of my headlights. The GPS kept insisting I was going the right way, but I wasn't convinced. At one point, I actually considered turning around because it felt less like I was driving toward a customer's house and more like I was accidentally leaving civilization altogether. Still, work is work, so I kept going. Eventually, I reached a narrow road surrounded by dense woodland. The trees pressed close to both sides of the pavement, their branches forming dark shapes against the sky. The entire place felt isolated, not abandoned, just forgotten. The kind of place you imagine people passing by every day without ever noticing. According to my GPS, the destination was less than a minute away. I slowed down. Then I saw the building. Even today, I struggle to explain why it looked so wrong. It wasn't falling apart. It wasn't covered in graffiti. Nothing about it was objectively alarming. Yet the moment I saw it, something inside me tightened. The structure stood alone near the edge of the woods. Old brick, tall windows, steep roof. The kind of architecture that looked decades older than everything around it. It felt misplaced, as if someone had picked up a building from another town and dropped it there by mistake. I parked near the curb and turned off the engine. Immediately, the silence hit me. No cars, no voices, no dogs barking, nothing, just wind moving through the trees. I grabbed my flashlight and stepped outside. The air was cold enough to sting. I had only taken a few steps when the beam of my flashlight landed on a man standing near the entrance. I nearly jumped. I hadn't even seen him at first. He was just there, waiting. The man looked to be in his late 60s, maybe older. Average height, gray hair, dark coat. Nothing remarkable about him except the fact that he stood completely motionless. When I approached, he smiled politely and thanked me for coming. His voice matched the one from the phone. I introduced myself and asked if he was the homeowner. He nodded. Then he looked toward the building, not at me, but at the building itself, like someone admiring an old photograph. That was the first thing that struck me as odd. Most people who lock themselves out are frustrated, embarrassed, or annoyed. This man seemed almost happy. I asked how long he'd lived there. He shrugged and replied, "Long enough." It wasn't exactly a normal answer. I laughed awkwardly and moved on. I asked for identification. He patted his coat pockets and smiled. "Everything's inside." Again, not unusual. It happens. But by that point, something about him was making me uneasy. Maybe it was the way he spoke. Maybe it was how he never seemed fully focused on the conversation. It felt like half his attention was somewhere else. Following company procedure, I asked him to describe the interior of the home. Normally, people can answer immediately. The color of the walls, furniture, family photos, anything. Instead, he became silent. For several seconds, he just stared at the front door. Then he nodded. Of course. I took out my notepad. He began describing the house. At first, everything sounded normal. A hallway, a living room, a kitchen. Then the details became increasingly specific. The exact position of furniture, small imperfections in walls, tiny objects sitting on shelves. He spoke slowly and confidently, as though he were walking through the rooms in real time. I remember feeling impressed until he mentioned something that made my stomach drop. He described a painting, not a painting inside the building, a painting inside my apartment, a painting hanging above my television. The exact painting. I froze. At first, I thought maybe I had misheard him. Then he kept going. He described my kitchen, my dining table, the stack of unopened mail sitting near the refrigerator. My heart started hammering. I didn't understand. I still don't. There was no possible way he could know any of it. I'd never seen him before, never met him, never spoken to him. Yet he continued listing details, one after another, every single one correct. I felt cold. Not scared exactly. Not yet. Just deeply unsettled. The kind of feeling you get when reality suddenly stops behaving the way it's supposed to. I interrupted him and asked how he knew those things. The man looked genuinely confused. Then he smiled. I thought you asked me to describe my house. I didn't know what to say. For the first time in years, I considered getting back into my truck and leaving. Instead, I stepped away and called a coworker. I told him something felt wrong. I didn't explain much beyond that, just asked him to come help. He agreed, and I sent him the address. The phone call lasted maybe 30 seconds. When I turned around, the man was gone. Just gone. No footsteps. No vehicle. No sound. Nothing. I searched the area with my flashlight. Called out. Walked around the property. No sign of him anywhere. It was as though he'd simply vanished. I spent the next half hour sitting inside my truck waiting for my coworker, trying to convince myself I was overreacting and trying to find a rational explanation. None came. Eventually, headlights appeared in the distance. My coworker arrived. I explained everything, at least everything I could explain without sounding insane. He listened quietly. Then he suggested we finish the job. Part of me wanted to leave. The other part needed answers. So we approached the door. The lock was old but sturdy. Nothing unusual about it. We got to work. The process took longer than expected. The sky had started turning pale by the time we finally heard the mechanism click. I remember exchanging a relieved look with my coworker. For a moment, things felt normal again. Just two locksmiths doing their jobs. I turned the handle. The door opened, and every reassuring thought disappeared instantly. The house was empty, completely empty. No furniture, no decorations, no wiring, no signs that anyone had ever lived there. Dust covered the floor. The walls were bare. The windows were boarded from the inside. There wasn't even evidence of recent activity. Nothing. It looked abandoned for years. My coworker stepped inside first. I followed. The air felt strangely still and heavy, like entering a building that hadn't been opened in a very long time. We walked through every room. Each one looked exactly the same. Vacant, silent, dead. No photographs, no clothing, no dishes, no personal belongings. Nothing. Certainly not the home the man had described. Eventually, we found something that made the situation even worse. Near the back wall sat a wooden chair. Just one. Nothing else in the room. Only the chair, resting alone in the center of an otherwise empty space. My coworker looked at me. I looked at him. Neither of us said anything. I can't explain why. There was simply something deeply wrong about it. Like we had stumbled into a place we weren't supposed to see. We left immediately, locked the door behind us, got into our vehicles, and drove away. Neither of us spoke much afterward. For months I tried to forget about it. I told myself there had to be an explanation. Maybe the old man was mentally ill. Maybe someone was playing a prank. Maybe my memory was exaggerating details over time. That's what I told myself. Then 3 weeks later, I came home after work. I unlocked my apartment door, walked inside, and stopped. Sitting on my dining table was a small folded piece of paper. I knew instantly it hadn't been there when I left. I lived alone. No one else had a key. My pulse started racing. Slowly, I picked it up. There was only one sentence written inside. 5 words, written in neat handwriting. Words I still remember perfectly. You should replace your locks. I changed every lock in my apartment that same night. I've changed them several times since. Nothing else has happened. No break-ins. No strange phone calls. No mysterious visitors. Just silence. But every once in a while, usually around 3 in the morning, I'll wake up suddenly and find myself staring at the front door. Listening. Waiting. wondering whether somewhere out there is an old man standing in the dark, looking at a house he shouldn't know anything about, and wondering how much he can still see through the keyhole. The group in the woods. I never thought I'd be the kind of person who joined a cult. When people hear the word cult, they picture gullible idiots standing around in robes waiting for a spaceship to arrive. That wasn't me. At least, that's what I used to think. The truth is a lot less dramatic and a lot more embarrassing. 3 years ago, I was 29, unemployed, living alone, and barely speaking to anyone outside of customer service workers and delivery drivers. My days blended together. I'd wake up around noon, scroll through my phone for hours, eat whatever junk food was easiest to make, and spend most nights staring at the ceiling wondering how my life had ended up like this. I wasn't suicidal. I just wasn't living. There's a difference. The loneliness was the worst part. Not the kind where you're physically alone. The kind where you feel invisible. Weeks would pass without anyone texting me first. Months would pass without anyone asking how I was doing. After a while, you stop feeling like a person. You start feeling like furniture. The thing about loneliness is that it makes you vulnerable. You don't notice it happening. You don't wake up one morning and think, "Today seems like a great day to get manipulated by strangers." Instead, somebody finally shows you kindness, and you follow it. For me, that person was a woman named Sarah. At least, that's the name she gave me. I met her at a grocery store. I was standing in line buying frozen pizzas and energy drinks when she struck up a conversation. That alone caught me off guard. Nobody talks to strangers anymore, especially not attractive strangers. She seemed genuinely interested in me. She asked questions. She listened. She laughed at my jokes. By the end of the conversation, she'd invited me to a community gathering outside town. A group of people, she said, who believed in helping one another. I almost said no, but then I went home, and I sat alone in my apartment, and I realized nobody else had invited me anywhere in over a year. So I went. The gathering took place on a large property about 30 minutes outside town. It wasn't what I expected. No robes, no chanting, no weird symbols. Just a group of maybe 30 people sitting around campfires, cooking food, talking, laughing. Everyone seemed happy, really happy. The kind of happy you don't see very often. People welcomed me immediately. They remembered my name. They asked about my interests. They acted like I mattered. Looking back, that's what hooked me. Not ideology, not religion, attention. For the first time in years, I felt seen. I started attending every weekend, then twice a week, then nearly every day. The group's leader was a man everyone called David. He was charismatic, calm, confident, the kind of person who could make you feel understood within 5 minutes of meeting him. He talked about purpose, community, finding meaning in a broken world. Nothing he said sounded crazy, at least not at first. Months passed. Gradually, small things started changing. David encouraged members to spend less time with people who drained their energy. Some members stopped talking to their families. Others quit jobs they didn't enjoy. Everyone seemed completely devoted to him. I noticed it, but I ignored it, because I was finally happy, or at least I thought I was. The first real red flag came 6 months after I joined. One evening, David gathered everyone around a fire. He told us that society was approaching a period of collapse. Economic collapse, moral collapse, spiritual collapse. He said only those who understood the truth would survive. People nodded along. Nobody questioned him. I remember feeling uncomfortable. Not enough to leave, just enough to notice. The second red flag came when members started donating money. At first it was voluntary. Then it became expected. Some people gave thousands. Others gave everything. One family sold their house. Another emptied their retirement savings. David claimed the money would be used to prepare for difficult times ahead. Again, nobody questioned him. By then, I should have walked away. But cults don't trap people all at once. They do it slowly, like a frog in boiling water. You adapt to each new level of weirdness until it feels normal. Then one night, everything changed. I was helping clean up after a gathering when I overheard a conversation. Two members were talking near one of the cabins. They didn't know I was nearby. One of them asked if the selection had been finalized. The other said yes. Then he mentioned my name. I froze. The conversation continued. They talked about a ceremony scheduled for the following weekend. About sacrifice. About destiny. About someone being chosen. At first I thought they were speaking metaphorically. But the more I listened, the colder I felt. Because they weren't speaking metaphorically at all. They were discussing me. I wish I could say I immediately ran. I didn't. Part of me kept trying to rationalize it. Maybe I'd misunderstood. Maybe it was symbolic. Maybe it was some bizarre spiritual ritual. Anything except the obvious answer. The next day I confronted Sarah. I told her what I'd heard. She smiled. Actually smiled. Then she said something I'll never forget. She said, "You shouldn't be afraid. Everyone would be honored to receive such a gift." A gift? That's when I knew. Something was seriously wrong. I left immediately. Or at least I tried to. As I walked toward my car, two members approached me. Friendly. Calm. Blocking my path. They insisted I stay. Just for dinner. Just one more meeting. Just one more conversation. My instincts screamed at me. I made an excuse and left anyway. The entire drive home, I felt sick. That night, I barely slept. The next morning, my phone exploded with messages. People from the group asking where I was. Telling me David wanted to speak with me. Telling me everyone was worried. The messages became increasingly desperate, then increasingly aggressive. When I stopped responding, members started showing up outside my apartment. Not threatening, not directly, just watching, waiting, trying to convince me to come back. For 3 days it continued. I finally contacted police. Unfortunately, there wasn't much they could do. Nobody had explicitly threatened me. Nobody had broken the law, at least not in a way that could be proven. So I made a decision. I disappeared first. I packed everything I could fit into my car and drove 6 hours away to stay with my brother. A brother I hadn't spoken to much in years. Ironically, one of the relationships the group had encouraged me to neglect. I stayed there for months. Changed my phone number. Deleted social media. Cut every connection I had to the group. Eventually, the messages stopped. The visits stopped. The fear faded. A year later, authorities launched an investigation into David's organization after allegations of financial fraud and coercive control surfaced. The group collapsed shortly afterward. David vanished. Last I heard, nobody knows where he is. Maybe nothing would have happened if I'd stayed. Maybe the ceremony was symbolic. Maybe the sacrifice wasn't physical. But here's the thing. When you find yourself surrounded by people who believe one person speaks absolute truth, when they encourage you to cut ties with everyone outside the group, when they convince you your life belongs to a greater purpose that only they understand, you don't wait around to find out how far they're willing to go. You leave. Immediately. The scariest part isn't that those groups exist. It's that for a while, I genuinely believed they cared about me. And maybe some of them did. Maybe they were victims too. But loneliness can make dangerous things feel safe. It can make manipulation feel like friendship. It can make control feel like belonging. That's the lesson I learned. I wasn't rescued by some heroic escape plan. I wasn't chased through the woods. I wasn't fighting off masked cultists in the middle of the night. I survived because, for one brief moment, I listened to the part of my brain telling me something was wrong. And I left before I learned what they really had planned for me. To this day, whenever someone asks how ordinary people end up in groups like that, I tell them the truth. Most people don't join because they're stupid. They join because they're lonely. And loneliness is one hell of a weapon in the wrong hands. Everyone turned against my friend overnight, and he never found out why. I've never shared this story online before because, even now, I'm not sure what really happened. I knew the guy for nearly 8 years. We weren't best friends, but we were close enough that we talked almost every day. He was the kind of person who kept to himself, went to work, paid his bills, and stayed out of trouble. Nothing about him ever suggested he was hiding some dark secret. That's why what happened to him still bothers me years later. It started gradually, at least from what I could tell. One day he messaged me asking if I was upset with him. I told him no and asked why. He said people had been acting strangely around him all week. Co-workers who used to joke with him barely acknowledged his existence. A couple of friends had stopped replying to his messages. He thought maybe he'd accidentally offended someone, and rumors were spreading behind his back. At first, I didn't think much of it. Stuff like that happens. Friend groups drift apart. Office politics get weird. People gossip. But then the messages became more frequent. Every day he seemed more confused than the last. The same question kept coming up over and over again. Did I do something wrong? It wasn't the way someone asks when they're trying to avoid responsibility. It wasn't defensive or angry. He genuinely seemed desperate for an answer, as if he believed there was something terrible he'd done, but somehow couldn't remember. A few weeks later, I met him for coffee. The guy sitting across from me looked exhausted. Dark circles hung beneath his eyes. He was unshaven and constantly rubbing his temples like he was trying to stop a headache that never went away. The first thing he asked was whether I'd heard anything about him. I laughed and told him no. He didn't laugh back. Then he started telling me things that made absolutely no sense. According to him, people were staring at him everywhere he went. Not just looking at him, staring. Strangers would move away from him in public places. Cashiers seemed uncomfortable serving him. His co-workers barely spoke to him anymore. I figured anxiety was getting the better of him. When someone starts believing everyone is judging them, they often begin noticing things that aren't really there. At least that's what I thought at the time. Then his situation got worse. About a month later, he lost his job. Officially, the company cited performance issues and workplace conflicts. Unofficially, he believed people simply wanted him gone. His social circle shrank almost overnight. Friends stopped returning calls. Invitations disappeared. Group chats went silent whenever he spoke. Every conversation with him became the same. What did I do? I never had an answer. Honestly, I couldn't think of anything. As far as I knew, he'd never been arrested, never hurt anyone, and never been involved in any scandal. Yet he was convinced there was something he'd done and somehow forgotten. Around that time, he developed a strange obsession. Every single night, he'd wake up at exactly 3 in the morning. Not around 3. Exactly 3. He started keeping a notebook beside his bed. Whenever he woke up, he'd write down whatever thoughts were in his head, hoping he'd remember something important. He filled dozens of pages, but nothing ever came of it. The notebook became nothing more than a collection of questions without answers. The worst part was watching him slowly lose trust in his own memory. He began reviewing old text messages, emails, and social media posts, searching for evidence of some terrible thing he'd done. He found nothing. Still, he couldn't let it go. One evening, he called me sounding more distressed than I'd ever heard him. He said he'd visited a local artist. At first, I thought he'd finally picked up a hobby. Instead, he told me he'd paid someone to draw his portrait. When I asked why, there was a long silence on the phone. Then he said something I'll never forget. "I want to see myself the way everyone else sees me." At that point, I genuinely started worrying about his mental health. He'd become convinced there was something wrong with him that only other people could see. The portrait, of course, looked completely normal. The artist had simply drawn a tired, stressed man. But my friend stared at that drawing for days as if it contained some hidden truth. Every time we spoke after that, he sounded further removed from reality. He stopped leaving his apartment except when absolutely necessary. He stopped answering most phone calls. Eventually, he stopped answering mine too. For nearly 2 weeks, I heard nothing from him. Then, one afternoon he called. His voice was calm. Too calm. He told me he'd finally figured everything out. Naturally, I asked what happened. What had he discovered? His answer still gives me chills. Maybe there was never anything to discover. I didn't understand. Neither did he. He said he'd spent months searching for a crime he couldn't remember committing. Months trying to understand why people seemed to hate him. Months looking for evidence that he was secretly a terrible person. And despite all that searching, he had found absolutely nothing. The only thing he had found was himself. Broken, exhausted, alone. Before hanging up, he said something else that has stayed with me ever since. If everyone thinks you're a monster long enough, eventually you start wondering if they're right. That was the last conversation I ever had with him. 3 days later, I got a phone call from a mutual acquaintance. My friend had taken his own life. There was no note, no explanation, no final message, nothing, just silence. Years have passed since then, and I still think about him sometimes. I still wonder whether he was suffering from paranoia, severe depression, some kind of psychological breakdown, or whether there really was something happening behind the scenes that none of us knew about. But whenever I remember him, I don't think about the rumors he feared or the answers he never found. I think about that one sentence. If everyone thinks you're a monster long enough, eventually you start wondering if they're right. And honestly, that's the part of the story that scares me the most. It doesn't require ghosts, demons, curses, or anything supernatural. Just loneliness, just doubt, just enough isolation to make someone stop trusting their own mind. The secret I carried for 13 years. I've changed the names in this story and altered a few identifying details for privacy reasons. The people involved are real, and as far as I know, most of them are still alive today. I don't expect anyone to believe me. Honestly, if I were reading this from a stranger online, I'd probably assume parts of it were exaggerated too. But everything I'm about to tell you happened. I was 16 years old when it started, and for a long time, I convinced myself that I wasn't responsible for how it ended. Now I'm 29, and I don't think I can lie to myself anymore. I grew up wealthy. Not billionaire wealthy. Not private jet on-demand wealthy. But wealthy enough that I never worried about money. My father owned a chain of luxury hotels, and my childhood consisted of vacations, private schools, and birthday parties that cost more than some people made in a month. Then my family moved. My dad expanded his business into a city that was famous for old money. And overnight, I found myself surrounded by people who made my family look average. That's where I met the girl I'm calling Arabella. Everyone knew who she was. Her mother came from one of those families whose name opened doors. Politicians attended their parties. Business executives competed for invitations to their events. Every newspaper in the city seemed to mention them at least once a month. Arabella had inherited all of the confidence that came with that kind of status. She was beautiful. I know that sounds cliché, but it's true. People noticed when she walked into a room. Teachers smiled differently around her. Students straightened their posture when she approached. She carried herself like someone who had never been told no in her entire life. The strange part was that she liked me, or at least that's what I thought. The first time we really talked was at a charity event hosted at one of my father's hotels. I remember standing alone near the buffet, pretending to check my phone because I didn't know anyone. Arabella walked over and asked if the seat beside me was taken. Just like that. Within 10 minutes, she had me laughing. Within an hour, she knew more about me than anyone at my new school. Within a month, she was my closest friend. Looking back, I think that's what made everything that happened afterwards so dangerous. I trusted her, completely. At first, people tried warning me. One guy I'll call Felix pulled me aside during lunch. "Be careful around her," he said. I laughed. He didn't. He told me Arabella enjoyed manipulating people. According to him, she'd spread rumors, started fights between friends, and somehow always managed to walk away looking innocent. I didn't believe him, mostly because Arabella had never treated me badly. In fact, she was one of the only people who seemed genuinely interested in being my friend. Then another girl, I'll call her Mirren, told me almost the exact same thing. She said Arabella liked collecting people. Not friends, people. According to Mirren, Arabella would pull someone into her circle, make them feel special, and then slowly turn everyone against them once she got bored. Again, I ignored it. When multiple people tell you the same thing, you should probably listen. I didn't. Over the next year, Arabella became the center of my world. We talked almost every day. We went to parties together, studied together, spent entire weekends hanging out. If you had asked me then, I would have said she was the best friend I'd ever had. The problem was that I started feeling something more than friendship. At first, I tried convincing myself it was admiration. Then I tried calling it a phase. Then I tried pretending it would go away. It didn't. Every time she smiled at me, my stomach flipped. Every time she touched my arm while talking, I couldn't focus on anything else. I fell in love with her. Hard. And I hated myself for it. Not because there was anything wrong with liking another girl, but because I knew she didn't feel the same way. I kept it hidden for months. Then one night, after a party, I made a mistake. We were sitting alone on the roof of a friend's apartment building. The city lights were reflecting off the river below us. We'd been talking for hours. I don't even remember what came over me. Maybe I was tired. Maybe I was stupid. Maybe I was just tired of pretending. Whatever the reason, I told her. The moment the words left my mouth, I wanted to take them back. Arabella stared at me for several seconds. Then she laughed. Not a cruel laugh. Not even an angry one. Just surprised. "Oh my God," she said. I remember every word that followed. She told me she wasn't interested in girls. She told me she wasn't interested in me that way. Then she told me it was okay. That she wouldn't tell anyone. That my secret was safe with her. I nodded. Pretended everything was fine. Pretended my heart wasn't breaking. Pretended I believed her. But something changed after that night. Maybe only inside my own head. Maybe not. I started noticing things. Whispers that stopped when I entered rooms. People looking at me strangely. Conversations that suddenly changed topics when I approached. I became convinced she had told someone. Then I became convinced she'd told everyone. To this day, I don't know if she actually did. Maybe she didn't. Maybe everything that happened next was fueled by paranoia. But at 16 years old, I was certain she had betrayed me. That's when Felix came back into my life. He claimed Arabella had ruined relationships, friendships, and reputations before. He said she enjoyed it. He said she liked watching people fall apart. And for the first time, I listened. The more I listened, the angrier I became. Then Mirren joined us. She had her own stories, her own grudges, her own reasons for hating Arabella. The three of us spent months feeding each other's resentment. Looking back, that's what scares me most. Nobody had to force us. Nobody manipulated us. We willingly built our own monster. Every conversation made Arabella seem worse. Every rumor became fact. Every suspicion became certainty. Eventually, we stopped talking about whether she deserved consequences. We started talking about what those consequences should be. I wish I could tell you there was one dramatic moment where I realized we'd gone too far. There wasn't. It happened gradually, like boiling water, 1 degree at a time, until suddenly we were discussing things that should have horrified us. And somehow they didn't. The night everything happened is burned into my memory. There had been a party outside the city, a large estate, too much alcohol, too many people, too much darkness. Arabella left early. We followed. I don't want to describe every detail, partly because I still struggle with them, partly because some memories should stay buried. What matters is that an argument started, then shouting, then pushing, then panic. And when it was over, Arabella wasn't moving. The silence afterward is what I remember most. Not the screaming, not the fear, the silence. 3 teenagers standing over a body, realizing there was no undo button, realizing life wasn't a movie, realizing we had crossed a line that could never be uncrossed. Nobody knew what to do. Nobody wanted to call for help. Because calling for help meant explaining what happened. And explaining what happened meant destroying our lives. So we made another terrible decision. Then another. And another. By sunrise, we had convinced ourselves we could survive it. That we'd get away with it. That people would believe whatever story they were given. For a while, it seemed like we were right. The investigation went nowhere. There wasn't enough evidence. There weren't enough witnesses. Rumors spread. The case cooled. Life moved on, at least for everyone else. I never moved on, because every time I closed my eyes, I saw her. Not the version of Arabella I'd grown to hate. The real version. The girl who sat beside me when I was alone. The girl who made me laugh when I had no friends. The girl who trusted me. The girl who, for all her flaws, never deserved what happened. Years passed. Felix disappeared from my life. Mirren disappeared too. None of us stayed friends. How could we? The only thing connecting us was the worst thing we'd ever done. Sometimes I wonder whether Arabella actually betrayed me at all. Sometimes I wonder if the whispers and strange looks existed only inside my head. Sometimes I wonder whether jealousy, heartbreak, and fear created an enemy that wasn't really there. And that's the thought that keeps me awake at night. Not that we hated her. Not that we blamed her. Not even what happened afterward. It's the possibility that she was innocent. That the person I spent years convincing myself was dangerous may have simply been a flawed teenage girl who trusted the wrong friends. If that's true, then everything that happened afterward wasn't revenge. It wasn't justice. It wasn't self-defense. It was murder. And if I'm being honest, deep down, I think I've known that all along. That's why I'm posting this now. Not because I expect forgiveness. Not because I want sympathy. But because secrets don't get lighter with age. They get heavier. And after carrying this one for 13 years, I finally needed to put it somewhere else. Even if only for a few minutes.